Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown Podcast. I'm Joe Oberle, senior writer at Purple PTSD and VikingsTerritory.com. And I'm joined each week by my buddy Mark Craig, Star Tribune NFL insider and Viking writer, longtime Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Kind of in the dog days of summer here and in the Viking schedule, which we've been for some time now. I don't even think there's nobody around down there, so there's not a heck of a lot to write about. So I thought I should talk about the 100-foot putt I made yesterday out at Stonebrook. You think that's worthwhile if folks want to hear about that?
For an eagle?
No, for a par. It was preceded by 3 rotten shots.
Okay, yeah. I want to get
up,
that.
Then into the trap, and then way the heck, so. But, it was made for a nice par, so what
I once saw Patrick Royce make a 100-foot putt on the at the last hole of the TPC. It was a media day, and to shoot probably about a 2,000 with 18 mulligans, and I brought this course to its knees. So that's my only other 100-footer I've ever seen.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, he used to write those stories for Star Tribune about his golf exploits. They were fun, but then he gave up the game, so he'd stop.
Well, he sculled a ball into Wayne Levy's ankle and dropped the defending champion one year, and I think that shook the wiser older owl.
Wow. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Probably a good idea, I guess. Well, I suppose we should talk about the Vikings. There's not a lot of heck of a lot going on, but you scour the internet and see what you can find. And I just wanted to talk about this note. Maybe we can talk about the head coaches a little bit, but I read an article on purpleptsd.com by Kyle Judry, in which he said that Kevin O'Connell has a chance to be only the 3rd Vikings head coach to win back-to-back division titles. Wow. Think about that. I grew up in an era when those were given, that Vikings year to year were going to win the titles just by how many, and then maybe go on deep in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. But this gives you a hint to that. But who are the other 2 coaches that have done that and the Vikings that have won? I mean, it's not that tough to figure out, but tell me, I just thought I'd quiz you early. Start you
out that way. I don't know. Did you look it up?
Kyle did, so I know what it is.
Oh, okay, well, yeah. Well, Kyle's digging in the bushes, huh? So I'm taking some time off, Kyle. I don't care. You can go ahead and look for it. So who else would it be?
Well, one of them.
Chili.
Oh, yeah.
Denny do it?
Yeah, it was Chili and Bud. Chili and Bud Grant. Oh. Yeah, and
well, there were 3 of them.
Yeah, Chili, Bud Grant, and KOC. Well, KOC would be the chance to win the third. Be the third.
Oh, he'd be the 3rd one. Oh, yeah. So, okay. Well, yeah, but Detroit's a little more ornery now than they were during the Bud years. But Bud, I think Mike Tice was 8-0 against Detroit. Bud was like 26-4 against Detroit, something like that. So, not that Bud couldn't beat other teams, obviously, but. There was
Detroit was kind of a gimme back in the day.
They're one of the Vikings are about 63 years old, and for about 30 of those years, the Packers have had a Hall of Fame quarterback. So it's like
that's true.
It's hard to win whenever you have Brett Favre have a 20-year or 18 there, and then followed by another 18 years by another guy that's pretty good. So.
Well, that raises a good point. I mean, that means it is going to be tough for Kevin O'Connell this year, especially during what looks to be a more so of a intensive rebuild than the last year's competitive rebuild when they did go 13-4 and win the NFC North. It's going to be tougher with, like you say, Detroit. Everybody's picking Detroit to win this division, and they pick the Packers every year, and I think there's more Packer fans out there in the media because even back in the Bud years, I'd go on, look at Sports Illustrated. That's what I subscribed to back then. And every year, Dr. Zimmerman, Dr. Z would pick the Packers, anything but the Vikings. And it didn't matter if the Vikings went to the Super Bowl the previous year. He'd be picking somebody else, anybody but the Vikings. And
well, no, I mean, I know the Packers didn't win it last year, but the Packers not having Aaron Rodgers, obviously just changes everything. I mean, even if Jordan Love ends up being a good player, there's going to be a transition year or two, I would assume.
Yeah.
Where but yeah, the popular pick is Detroit. The popular pick is like Detroit, how they ended, how they where they are. Campbell's got certainly Campbell. There's a lot more respect for Dan Campbell than there was when they were 1-7 and trading away Hawkinson to the Vikings or whatever it was. But you got to be in the NFL. I don't think I'd ever want to be. Speaking from my experience with the Cleveland a few years back, Philadelphia when they had the dream team that they were talking about in maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. I don't think I'd ever want to be that team unless you're like the Patriots with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I don't want to be that team that everyone's saying, oh, they're the trendy pick. They're,
right.
Because they tend to never materialize. I would have to see. I mean, I like Detroit. I like where they're going, but I still got to see it to believe it because, they certainly are not a lock.
Yeah, but I just saw something yesterday where they were picking the Vikings in the third in the division. So I mean, I guess I go back to the point. Detroit's going to be tough. There's no question about it. But everybody still's got love for the Packers, and I'm not sure where it all comes from. Jordan Love. They lost Aaron Rodgers, and there's going to be a transition. Jordan Love. Well, the Vikings have a pretty goddamn good offense coming back. I know.
Well, you didn't know where the love was. That's what it is. Jordan Love, baby.
God. Whew. Still must be thinking about my 100-foot putt. I wonder how many times I'll mention that in this podcast. I don't know. The Vikings have a pretty good offense. It's coming back. There's a lot of weapons there. They've helped it, but granted, Dalvin Cook is going to be gone, and there'll be an adjustment there. But we're going to talk in the next segment about the Vikings offensive line in a positive way, something that hasn't been done for years. So I think in that regard too, they're going to have that offense. They got Brian Flores on defense, and there's some rebuilding to go on. But I don't think they're going to be any worse on defense than they were last year. And nobody's picking rightfully so the Bears to do anything, but they may jump up and surprise you too. But I just think there's not enough love for the Vikings yet. It's popular to pick the Lions, and they always got to have the Packers. And they're probably because they know there's so many Packer fans out there. They got to keep those Packer fans interested.
Wow, you are checking all the boxes for Vikings fan. Woe is us. Woe is us. You say they can't get any worse on defense. Where they can get worse is they won a lot of games, or well, not a lot. They won a number of games, multiple games with key takeaways at the end of games. Now, if they don't have those, they lose more games, right? I mean, it's not like the defense was not good last year. It was not good, but the defense had moments where they won or contributed to winning games. If I would say the defense last, statistically it was bad, but there were key moments where they had takeaways where they Buffalo is a good example.
Detroit.
The one was it where Dancer had a takeaway at the end. Was that Detroit?
That's the one guy that stole it out of the hands of the Detroit player.
Bynum, yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying that. Yeah, don't never say
a good point, Mark.
Worse,
But on the other side of that coin, they had to come back on offense and win games that the defense could not make a stop near the end of the game and force them into that, And so you got that offense that overcompensated or compensated for that porous defense at the end of games because that put them in a lot of positions. There were a number of times that they should have had that thing won if the defense makes a stop at one of the end of the games. Now, sometimes they did, like you just mentioned, but I think, you got to balance that out with there's that other stuff to happen. And I think if you just improve the defense a little bit, they're going to get younger on defense. And you got Brian Flores, and I'm hoping his scheme is going to be better. It sounds like you might revitalize Harrison Smith back there. A lot of new faces, and that's going to take an adjustment. But I just, they were ranked like 29th or 30th or 31st, second in most categories. I just don't think they'll be.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's points allowed and takeaways is probably what I would look at the most. Because you get involved in games like Buffalo, where I'm sure both offenses had a bunch of yards and stuff, and you win the game. You win the game also with with some defense being played at the end of that game. The corner, the little corner that went to Vegas. God, it's off season, so I'm forgetting names. But he comes in and as his third play of the game, he's up playing their big tight end and goes up and makes it.
Oh yeah. I can't think of his name.
The next play, Patrick Peterson has an interception. So that's where, okay, statistically it's bad, but there were some takeaways that it wasn't like the defense didn't do anything.
No, you're right. And we're going to have to watch that through this year and see, look at those categories and see if they do improve or if they do worse, because I said doo-doo. I didn't say poo-poo. It should be interesting to watch. And that's where, to me, it's going to come down to the Viking season. Given that, go ahead.
The bottom line is, should people expect the Vikings to win the division? Yes. I mean, it's a competition that it's theirs. It's their. Well, they won it last year, and they have the ability to win it this year. If they lose it, it's a bad season. If they give up the division, it shouldn't be. Well, Detroit's was primed to make a move on them, or who knows we can't just dismiss the Bears out of hand. I mean, no. The Bears are going to turn around. They appear to be a couple years away, but this league is filled every year with worst to first.
It's true.
Jacksonville was the worst in the league 2 years in a row. Last year they win they make the playoffs.
Right.
And so to me it's like yeah, people should expect this Vikings team. Do not give them a pass if they don't win the division. They should win the division. The offense should carry the defense, and the defense should be more aggressive. So you expect to win the division. If you think, if they don't win the division, there's no excuses. I'm not, because they're good enough to win this division.
When you say that about Jacksonville, it makes me think that it's always centered around the quarterback position. It took what the heck's that quarterback's name? The long hair, I can't catch
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. It's taken him a while to get to where he is. Now they're picking him as his sneaky MVP and stuff for next year. And so you look at, it's always so important about the development of the quarterback. Well, look at that in the NFC North. You've got Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff. You can go back and forth at who's better, whatever you want, but they're both established, and they should be given that metric near the top of the division. You got the other two. One is going to be a starter for the first time with Love in Green Bay, and Justin Fields, who's still trying to come into his own. It's getting better. So by that metric, it should be the Bears and the Packers at the bottom of the division, and the Vikings battling the Lions. But and with Kirk Cousins, who's the seasoned veteran of them all and just won the division, it's got a great offense. It should be him, but I guess that's not.
Well, I wouldn't even qualify it as a tie like you did with Goff. Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Jared Goff, I think.
I agree.
I would take Kirk over Jared, and I think Jared Goff certainly has took one heck of a step toward rewriting the whole idea that he's just a throw in with the Stafford trade. That was a dangerous offense last year, but I'd still would take Kirk Cousins. If you gave him, who would you pick of the four? Kirk Cousins would be. It wouldn't take me any amount of time to say that's the quarterback that I would want of those four teams.
So I'm going to go with it like this. I think the Vikings on offense have a chance to be better. They might not be better because they did lose Dalvin Cook, but I think they have a chance to be better this year. So it's going to depend on the defense. Looking at the defense then to improve, I saw a piece in Sports Illustrated, speaking of them a little bit earlier, that on a move the Vikings should be making this offseason. And I know you've talked a lot about this. I've never found time to get much of it in here, but you said there are some moves out there for the Vikings to make still yet. Now that they got some more cap room with the loss of Dalvin Cook, they said that the Vikings could sign or should sign Trey Flowers, an edge rusher who has a history with Brian Flores. He was with, I think, Detroit and Miami, probably down with Brian down in Miami. But he's only played 18 games due to injury in the past 3 seasons. So that might, that might allow them to sign him, but it's also a risk. What do you think of?
Well, he was also,
and what else can the Vikings do? I guess.
I mean, he was in New England too.
Oh, was he? Okay.
So yeah, I mean, typically you see that. I think they're waiting to see how the thing with Danielle Hunter is going to work out. I mean, if they can't make Danielle Hunter happy and he's not around, you're definitely going to see a rusher. And that, going back to the Chris Doleman's a Hall of Famer who was a rusher for the tail end of his career.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get into these Hall of Fame selection meetings and there's always there'll be a question of if a guy plays in 6 teams in 7 years or whatever, some crazy amount, you're like, there'll be someone will question like, well, why was so-and-so, if he was so good, why was he always somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of, some people that is a legitimate question maybe, but when it comes to these pass rushers that can be, they can be so successful into their late 30s and even 40 years old that, they go on a lot of 1-year deals and a guy like, Julius Peppers, look at Pepper. He did have a long stay with Carolina and also, the Packers.
Yep.
But he played multiple teams. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Jared Allen was kind of, he bounced at the very end from Vikings, Bears, and the Panthers. Here's Jared. He's banged up. He's at the end of his career. Probably, he's only got, his career's down to weeks and months. The Panthers are 15-1 on their way to the Super Bowl. They sign him, and he ends up helping them, go to the Super Bowl. So yeah, that's what I think they needed. Even if Danielle is happy and whole and in camp, I would sure like to have another guy that you can bring in where, you can have 3 of those guys going at it. I'd like Wonham and Pat Jones as guys that are, spot players, but I'd love to have another a guy like that who has a history of being able to rush the passer. And in this case, the injury factor, you take a risk because the reward would be better than what the risk what a Trey Flowers or some of the other guys in the past few weeks that I've mentioned that are off the tip of my tongue now, but those guys that can come in and cause some havoc, but you don't need them to play 80% of the snaps. You don't need them to start. You just need them to hey, this is a coordinator that's going to be coming after the quarterback, and you need more people that can do that.
Right. Yeah, I would love to see it if he's healthy. I'd love to see him take. I think he was a 4th-round pick at some point, and just has had some injuries that have hampered him a little bit. You've talked I think you've suggested other backers. I don't know or other players that they could pick up. Free agents still out there. Is there something else you'd like him to do? Would you like to get him someone on the interior defensive line or other places that you'd like to see the Vikings maybe take some of that cap money and spend?
Well, I think at this point of this, at this point of the progress toward a season, I mean, most of the hay is in the barn, right? I mean, you're kind of like,
wow, nice cliche. I love it.
Like that. And in saying that, I just take one cliche at a time. I don't look ahead, Joe. I try to stay within myself, stay where my feet are planted, Joe.
That away. Woo. We might need a new tracker, cliche tracker here on
I have 30 some years worth of listening to these guys. So,
the hay's in the barn.
So yeah, what were we talking about? Yeah, but yeah, I'd say the number one priority would be, getting another edge rusher because the corners at this point, they have a lot of guys that could look good if they stay healthy. I don't think I've ever seen a team where, especially at one position, where virtually every guy that's going to contribute for them or that they hope contributes for them has the injury question mark looming over them.
Oh my God.
The starters, the third guy, the backups. You extend it to the safety position with Scene, and I mean, it's wow. It's like, they could be really, really good. They could be really, really bad because they're, it's not that steady, performer that's durable, that you've just been proven to be durable. So it'd be interesting to watch.
That's a great point. And on that note, we'll stop and take a break, and we'll pick that up in the next segment because there was a ESPN ranked position groups on the teams, the best and worst around the league, and that's kind of a segue to what the best or worst might be for the Vikings. So we'll come back and talk about that. So take a break here on the Vikings Territory Breakdown podcast. Come on back and give it a listen. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown with Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Mark, we were talking at the tail end of last segment about the Vikings cornerback position, and I mentioned that ESPN ranked position groups around the league, best and worst for each team, and I think Mark was starting to elaborate on just which one is the worst for the Vikings, or at least the most concerning, and that would be the secondary or the cornerback group, because there's a lot of new faces around there, and as you pointed out, there's a lot of injury concern. What can you tell me about that? And do you agree with that assessment as that's the worst position group?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Was it called the worst position or the biggest question mark? I forget.
Most concerning, at least the most concerning.
Poor ESPN. I'm surprised there's anyone left there to rank anything.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, it's unfortunate. I mean, the people that ESPN's letting go now, they live in a different zip code or financial zip code than we do. So maybe it's a top heavy deal with. But boy, a lot of when you start seeing some of the people that are going, it's terrible to see anybody go through that.
Is it basically they're trying to cut salary and bring in younger guys to?
Well, I think a lot of whenever people like me at our age, I cut the cord a long time ago. I think that. Yeah. And it's happened to me in my profession by the newspapers. Whenever we started giving the foot soldiers on the ground like myself that don't make decisions, we kind of our eyebrows raised when we were saying, they said, well, we're going to give away everything for free on the internet the night before. Trust us, it'll work out. Don't worry about it. And so here we are. But the cord cutters. I think that impacted ESPN. Had to. My goodness, it's hard to believe that ESPN would be. But anyways, we got off on a really wild tangent there.
Well, it's just fascinating to me. I mean, I've been in the business, and I've been in. I used to work for the Timberwolves, and that's what they. I worked there for about 6 years, and they came in at one point and said, "Yeah, you're making too much money. We want to bring in somebody right out of journalism school that is cheaper and can do your job for less money."
So once they got rid of you, they had the money to pay Garnett.
It was around that time they were already paying him, so they had to find places in door to do it.
Well, Garnett was making 126 million at that point.
Yep.
So where can we get that money? Oberle, you're
right. It's. I have no idea. That's what it seems laughable, but that's certainly what you point to at the time. It's like all the money goes downstairs to the locker room, and we get up here for peanuts. But I get it. You get younger kids in there, hungry to work for a professional sports franchise, and then you get, they want raises each year, But after a certain point, we got to start over again, and that's what I kind of think is going on in ESPN as well. I mean, you got, it's easy to get. Hey, you go work for ESPN. Everybody's going to say, you don't have to pay me. I'll work for free. Butch Weiniger for the Twins way back in the day. Anyway, that is a tangent for another time, for another day, for another time. But anyway,
I think the point being that the corner position is there. Whether you want to call it I don't think I'd call it the worst position just because we don't.
You did in your note to me, so you said.
Well, what I said, I think it wasn't. But my feeling is it's the position that is the biggest wild card, which if I'm an NFL team, I don't want that position being my, hey, I wonder what's going to happen there.
That's
position.
A good point.
It's like, we're set here, we're set there, but if only our cornerbacks could cover people in this league, unless we're going back to the 1977, I would be really concerned about my corners if I was the Vikings. In saying that, if Murphy comes through and is a heck of a nickel guy and stays healthy, great. And those other two young guys, they come back and year two and they're healthy. Yeah, that's great. The guy that was actually under the radar is and man, I'm just totally blanking on names, but the Joe Johnson, who also had a shoulder injury, missed all of last year, former Patriots, second round pick. He looks the part and more when you see him in training camp or in camp, real tall, long, and everything. If he comes through, that's great. But it's just a really scary position to be in when you don't have Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson was 105 years old, but Patrick Peterson was reliable. He was there every week. He was a great leader. He knew the defense. Even when the defense was new, he was a guy that he can be replaced because the age always overtakes everyone. But it's scary not having a guy like him on the team. So that would be the biggest holy crap what's going to happen position would be cornerback.
Well, that's kind of funny because when Patrick Peterson was signed, I mean, we were all excited about here because he's had the great career already. But that was what you worried about, him being able to stay on the field health-wise. And here it is, all these other younger guys that are getting hurt around him. So it was like bizarro world where you expected Peterson to play a few games, get hurt because he's old, and then someone else have to take over, but it was a complete opposite. But let me ask you that. I mean, yes, injuries are a concern. You had seen going on with the broken foot, ankle, leg, whatever it was down there. You got Andrew Booth, who came in with a history injury, got injured, and did not play. Now, do you believe that injuries are unavoidable and stuff that just happens? And I would think in Scene's case, that's the case. You don't break your leg every day in football, but it does happen. Andrew Booth, maybe does he have a history of this and that he's just one of those breakable guys? I mean, I'm thinking that odds are they got to be healthier this year, just because that's the way injuries take place.
Well, normally I would agree with you, but in the case of Booth, I go in expecting him to have an injury, and if he proves us wrong, great, because that's what he was in college. Even whenever he got introduced here, he was saying hasn't been healthy since probably his first couple of years in high school. So he's always had, it's always been legs and the groin and just different things. So if he's the kind of guy that flames out and doesn't have a good career and he's done before he's 28, 25, whatever, or 26, they can't be excused. It can't be, guys have injuries. The guys drafting him, that's one that's going to be a check mark in the bad column. I don't care what people want. If people want to excuse it, go ahead. But in my book, that's one that from day one, when he was drafted, that was the question mark. And if he can't overcome that, then the guy who drafted him, that's his fault. And so that's one where I'm thinking, okay, this could happen. It could happen. Now, the other one with the concussions with
Caleb Evans.
Gosh.
Caleb Evans.
Caleb Evans. And that's a case where, I don't put that on the Vikings as much because I don't think he didn't come in with a history of concussions, just like Tua down in Miami.
Right.
To me, that guy is one play away from retirement, and that would scare the heck out of me if he's my quarterback. Yeah. This guy could be one play away from having to retire.
Right.
My screen just went out, Joe. So a screensaver. I couldn't look at you, Joe. So I
good for you.
Yeah. How do I get that back up? To me, that's a case of those two young guys. Where one case I'm thinking, okay, the Vikings, I can't blame them for the concussions and stuff like that. The other one, it's like, they could have seen this coming, but it could still prove us wrong. He's young enough to prove us wrong.
I think Caleb Evans, does he have to start tackling differently? Because he's a pretty aggressive tackler. He's a small guy. Reminds me of a little of Antoine Winfield in that way. But to get that many concussions in the first season, maybe he's got to do something different. I don't know.
I don't think at this stage of a guy's life or career you can change who he is. I think if you start changing who you are, you probably open yourself up to more injuries.
That's a good point.
When these guys start, I don't want to say they don't think, but when the great ones even the good ones or the bad ones when they're going good, are playing at a speed where it's natural. They're not thinking as much, and it's a reaction. And then they use their great. They all, very few of them don't have elite type athletic skills. So I don't think you can change a guy like him at this point. No, he's got to play the way he plays.
Does Murphy, his first name Byron or Brian? Byron, is it Byron?
Byron Murphy.
Yeah, is he kind of coming in, rowing the same boat with? And he's had some injuries coming in, right? The last few years.
He had a back injury last year. I don't believe he had surgery. But he only played like 5 games last year. He's a guy that could be your leader. He's kind of could be your number one corner. I think that's how they view him. And he's got the skills, and he also learned from Peterson. When Peterson was with the Cardinals, so you get a good feeling about him. But as a number one corner, that I'll keep that in my holy crap, what's going to happen division there.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, if suddenly I don't feel so bullish on the Vikings to improve their defense. They might end by the end of the season calling Marcus Shirelles to come in and play
Benny Sapp. Or there's another Benny Sapp now. The updated version, Benny Sapp 3 or whatever. Maybe he can come in.
They should have given that guy. We can't even think his name. He came in and saved the cornerback room last year. That small guy that did go. I want to say Denver, but I can't remember where he went.
No, he went to Vegas.
Okay.
Don't embarrass us anymore. Don't keep bringing it up. We don't know his freaking name.
Okay. All right.
I read stories on him and everything else.
All right, then that's the most concerning, and then all of a sudden, suddenly it seems like a no-brainer, the most concerning position. But probably the strongest position, according to ESPN, in that thing was the offensive line, and it's kind of shocking to say that for a Vikings team. I mean, it's been the focus of derision from the fans for many years. Certainly yelling at Rick Spielman for not addressing the offensive line. When if you go back and look, they did more and made more shots at addressing the offensive line than they get credit for doing. But Mark, talk about that. I mean, they got 2 tackles there that are looking pretty good. One of them's coming off an injury, Achilles injury, which is also concerning. But according to you, he should be ready to go come training camp and such. So talk about Darisaw and talk about the whole offensive line for me, will you?
Well, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are Spielman draft picks, and they're all in the first or second round. So,
right.
Rick, that was all we talked about when Rick was here. Rick tried every year, made a lot of swings and misses, especially at the end of the draft where he would always, that 5th, 6th, 7th, where he was trying to find someone and typically it didn't work out. Unfortunately for Rick, by the time we get to this point where they're being ranked, this is the ranking season because there's, the media, NFL disappears. It's the only time they disappear, but we keep doing things. And the only way we can talk about is ranking stuff. So by the time we got to this point, Rick is gone, long gone, and he's one of us. He's a media hack. I see him popping up videos, and he writes for the 33rd team website. I think it's 33rd team.
Mark, anybody that gets a camera on their thing can do this, right? I mean, just like you and I.
I mean, yeah, and you're only as strong as your weakest link when it comes to these things, Joe. That's the way
my God.
That's how I view you, and it's probably how you view me, right?
100-foot putt, man. 100-foot putt. That's all I'm saying.
So, yeah, the thing is, Darisaw, and I didn't know this till I read it, that he was number 2 on PF for the modern people that have a lot, whose hair is a lot more, there's a lot more of it, and it's a lot darker than us. They need to know what PFF says about a guy. So PFF said that he was number 2 tackle behind only Trent Williams. And Trent Williams is gonna 5 years, 1 second after 5 years that when he becomes eligible, Trent Williams is going to go in the Hall of Fame as a first ballot, Hall of Famer.
Yep.
And then Darisaw was ranked number 2 among tackles behind him. Darisaw certainly to me is up there. I mean, when you watch Trent Williams play, even at his age, he's a 50-year-old guy or whatever it is. He plays as if he's like like a dad in the parking lot with a bunch of little kids. Even his physical, his technique, his size, his physical nature, he's still like a dominant tackle. And Darisaw has that. The only thing that the only ding that I would put on Darisaw is, boy, you just can't trust that, he's durable enough to always be there. There's going to be a couple games where maybe he doesn't play, and that's through no fault of his own. I don't think, because he had one that was the last year where it was a concussion where it didn't look that bad, and he was out. And so your left tackle, you typically, at least in the old days, you typically didn't want him ever leaving the field.
No.
But in saying that, when the guy's on the field, he never looks like he's he always looks like he's living an unhurried life out there. It's kind of like he's not off balance. He's not rushed. He's confident. Doesn't say a whole lot. You don't hear him say a whole lot. So yeah, I love him as a left tackle, and that's huge for. I mean, look at what Rick Spielman. How long it took him to try and. He got Khalil. He thought maybe Khalil's a Pro Bowl player his rookie year, and then just really kind of disappeared.
Right.
All the work that Spielman had to trying to build that offensive line. Kwesi comes in and he's got a left tackle. He's got a right tackle. That is huge.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage to have for a guy. And O'Neal, had the injury, but he's moving around fine in these OTAs. He wasn't practicing, but he was off to the side. He looks like he'll be ready to go. So yeah, their strength. I think ESPN, their strongest position would be the tackle position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that. I think the receiver position gives them. You have to wait to see what Addison does for them. I think receiver, just because you have the best one in the league and you also have a great number 3, could rival that as their best position. But I'm okay with saying that those tackles are their strongest point, which is especially when your quarterback is like Kirk, who needs a pocket passer and needs that time. That's a big advantage.
Want to touch a little bit on the rest of the line, and you made a note to me here about guards, and I should point out that yesterday after I made that 100-foot putt, we went over to Lions Tap and had a burger, and the guy who sat down in the booth next to us was none other than Hall of Fame guard Randall McDaniel, which was pretty cool. He gave me this look like, wondering if I recognized him, and I did, but I didn't say anything to him. Let him eat his meal in peace. But boy, I would have liked to have talked to him. What a guy he is on the field, that was on the field, and certainly is off the field. But hats off to him. Anyway, what about the guard play? I mean, you sent me a note about Rick not being happy about how the guards were used in the later years, and maybe segue to where the Vikings are at with their guards right now.
Well, first, Randall McDaniel is one of my favorite former NFL players. He wrote the foreword to my book.
Nice.
And
it's over here, I got it.
And he also he's a teacher or a teacher's aide, a guy that could be doing anything right now. A Hall of Famer, one of the best guards to ever play. As Joe walks away from me,
I'm listening.
To me, he's a wonderful person. Was a great player. That's it. I gotta put that on Twitter because people are still buying that thing. Buy. So Randall wrote, and he wrote it. It wasn't like I talked to him and interviewed it. He took the time to actually write it. And we were at a golf a charity event one time. I got to tell this story. So they had it was the old Rod Simon tournament out at Stone Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And Rod had a lot of celebrities, but he also had a lot of groups that he had to fill in. So it's very distracting, Joe.
I know that's Randall's forward. So anyway,
so he would fill in. I guess you might have to pay more for an actual celebrity, but he would have. And I probably the most embarrassing days of my life was coming out to greet a foursome as a quote celebrity. Because I'm in the media. So one time we were on that was John Randall, but John Randall comes up to his group, and we're like the number 2 group. And so John Randall, who I know, and Johnny's great. He's their celebrity, and I'm back with these other guys. I couldn't help. I was like, I said, say, guys, you must not have paid much. They must have paid a hell of a lot more for them to get John Randall and you to get me. So then you tell John Randall stories or Randall McDaniel stories. But then afterwards, I bought some sort of little it's a helmet with a Hall of Fame helmet with Randall McDaniel's signature on it. So it's already signed. So I bought it because you play in these tournaments, you want to give back and stuff. So I bought this thing and I'm carrying it out. And he goes, "What? Hey, Mark, what do you got there?" And I say, some guy signed this. And he goes, I could have given you one of those. And I said, no, I wanted to buy it. So great guy.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the guard.
Wait. Speaking of signatures, do you think I could ever get one on this damn book by the guy who wrote it? I mean, I'm on a podcast with him every week. But hell no.
Well, you send it to my people. I'll get it back to you.
Yeah, whatever.
I'll send it with that beer I owe you from last year.
That's right. All right, keep talking.
So the guards, well, there was a lot of fractures with, obviously as we saw after the fact. It always happens between coach, general manager.
Yep.
And speaking of Rick building the offensive line, at the end, 2021 was, the year where Dennis had stepped away. It would have been 2020, where he wouldn't
get COVID year. It was a COVID vaccine.
Yeah. And then the last year was 2021. And I know that Rick, when Dennison stepped away because he wouldn't get the shot, Phil Rauscher came in and, it was the offensive line play. And it was partly Zimmer too. And they kind of went away from the Dennison, Kubiak zone running and stuff like that to some more power stuff. And I know that like Spielman was that sort of rubbed him the wrong way because he felt that he was drafting for a certain system and they kind of went away from it. And then obviously on the other side, they were like, you need to be drafting guys who are more well-rounded. But I guess in defense of Rick, he put a lot of resources into the offensive line and got it to the point now where it is now. Unfortunately, they didn't, that regime didn't survive long enough to get the true benefits of this offensive line. And Ezra Cleveland, who I don't think played as well last year. I don't know what the PFF numbers are, but I don't think he played as well last year as he did maybe the year before. Bradbury had a better year. I need to see him do it over a longer stretch.
Right. I agree.
And the rookie Ingram certainly had didn't have an impressive year, but the fact that he was there for he played every single snap on offense tells me that, he should take another step this year.
And they clearly like him, don't they? They clearly, they have.
I think they like him, but I think they expect more from him.
Yeah.
And I think we should see that if there's more of if there's a commitment in the weight room and he comes back looking, like advancing his body more like an NFL player, and he's on that trajectory. I mean, if it'd be different if he had gotten benched or he got hurt. I mean, he was there for every single play for a team that won 13 games, so he had to be doing more right than wrong. I mean, as much as he did catch our attention when he was struggling or stepping on Kirk's foot every other sometimes, but there's something there to work with where for a long stretch of time that right guard position has been a revolving door, and I think maybe he's that guy that can shut it and play well.
That'd be nice. It would be nice to go into a season with an offensive line that has some continuity, has some time together, has some experience, and there are some question marks. You just brought them up. We'd like to see Ezra Cleveland bounce back. I'd like to see Garrett Bradbury do it another year, and a step up from for Ingram. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. And we got to have Brian O'Neill come back from a near devastating. It's a devastating injury, but it could have been worse. But that his talent is there, and he just needs to get back in the deal. And it could be fun. It would be great for Kirk, and they're going to need the offense to play just as well as last year to win that division. Anyway, we're over time on this segment, so we'll take another break, and we'll come back and have a little fun putting Mark on the prediction meter again. He loves it so much. I mean, he's old school, so he doesn't like to make all those predictions, but we'll make him do it anyway. So come on back, Mike. What's that?
I just take him one prediction at a time, Joe.
So. Come on back to Vikings territory breakdown and check that out. Thanks. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings territory breakdown, final segment for this week. We wanted to have a little fun. I want to put Mark on the hot spot and ask him to look in his crystal ball or his
another cliche
divining rod or whatever he uses to make all his predictions. He doesn't do a whole lot of them. I think he does them grudgingly, but we'll make him do some more. You got to know that, Mark. Talking about Randall McDaniel in the Hall of Fame, he's a Hall of Fame writer and voter for each year and the Pro Bowl. So he's on the inside of all that. He knows what's up, and we always like to tap his brain for that. But that's not what we're doing this time. I want to know. I'll start out with the softball. I want to get know some stats leaders for the coming season, and who do you think is going to be the receiving yardage leader in 2023, Mark? Who could it be? Who possibly could it be?
Whoa. KJ Osborne.
You don't need a crystal ball for that.
KJ Osborne.
What's that?
KJ Osborne.
It could be. I mean,
next. Come on, Joe. Next question.
All right.
A guy named Jefferson will probably lead all these categories.
Okay, who will be number 2?
That's a good question. I had answers for one of the fantasy football questions for a magazine about what Addison and how Osborne. I think that I think Osborne is going to make the most of his advantage. So I put the Addison will lead them. I'm going to say Addison will lead them in yards per catch because he's going to have one of those 30 catch, but
that's good.
Some big plays, I think. So average per catch, I'll go with Addison as number 2 in receiving yards. I'm going to go KJ. I'm
going to go TJ. I think that he could, or at least, that he's my guy for receptions. I think he's Kirk's his security blanket, and he's going to be, he might not get the yards because he's not that huge after the catch, but he is he's going to be up there in that.
If I had thought of tight ends too, I might have done that. But I'm going to stick with what I said. So
all right, good. We can bet another beer on it that you'll never pay me. Let's see. How about touchdown leaders? JJ didn't win it last year. He came up one behind Dalvin Cook, who's gone. So does that leave it wide open for
overall touchdowns?
Yep. Overall.
Well, I think Madison will be a short yardage guy. He'll be a goal line guy. I think Madison's going to lead him in scoring touchdowns. Now, I think Justin Jefferson needs to lead. We talked about this last week. I think on the MVP situation, he's got to have one of those big. For him to have a chance to win MVP, I think they got to win, and he's got to have a big year. But he's also got to score a lot.
He scored 9 last year. 9.
He's only 8, 9, 10. But if he can get up around that, that Randy Moss range,
right,
that would be a MVP caliber type of player. But I'm going to say Madison. I think they're going to be I love Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin is going to add to any offense he goes to. But I come away feeling that they can be a better offense. They can score more points. They can be a better offense without Dalvin Cook and with Madison because of what. I feel like they'll be a little more powerful. That's not to say that I wouldn't want to have if the financials were right, I'd like to have them both. But I think Madison will score the most touchdowns by the Vikings.
Madison's going to snipe away some touchdowns from my guy because JJ will take it down to the 1 yard line, and Madison will get all those touchdowns, those short charges. But I'm going to go with Jefferson. I think after last year, I think they're that's going to be one of. He's not a diva, and he's the best in the league. So they say. I think that number's got to go up for him, and that's who I think we'll have.
So your most overrated player is going to be your touchdown leader now, Joe?
That's correct, sir. Okay. I'm slowly working my way back before the season starts. JJ's bandwagon.
He'll be giving you a cookie before you know it if you keep buttering him up.
Nice callback. If I can only get him on my fantasy football team, and my son keeps stealing them from me, then I'll be all on board, all in on JJ. Who's going to be the leading tackler, Mark? Now that Eric Kendricks is gone, one would think, and this is who I got obviously as Asamoah, because I'm not as deep thinker as anybody else, but he's gonna probably get those. But he's gonna be starting in his second season, start as a full-time starter for the first time. Maybe he's got more to learn, and he might not be that guy. Who you got? Anybody else besides him?
Oh, the inside linebacker next to him, who I thought had a better year than Kendricks last year, would be Hicks. I would have him. I think he's a good guy to have. Asamoah is his. I think his desire, his explosiveness, his speed makes him an outstanding player. I think it's going to take it's going to take a time for him to replace an Eric Kendricks.
Yep.
But I think it's just the sheer number of tackles. I'd go with the guy Hicks next to him.
So they kept Hicks and they had to get rid of Kendricks. That had more to do with contract than anything, because Kendricks didn't lose that much, did he?
Well, it had everything to do with contract.
Yeah.
One guy was more expensive and clearly not open to any kind of, like Harrison Smith would. If Harrison Smith took the same stance that Kendricks took, Harrison Smith would be gone too. And Harrison even admitted that he thought about that whenever one of the times he was available during the offseason, but he wanted to come back, and play under Flores and all that. And Kendricks wasn't going to give him the discount. And I don't fault either one of them. Each guy's got to make their own decision, because the team makes its decision on a guy. The guy should be able to make a decision one way or the other on his own. So, yeah, and the other guy his contract was up, but he was more affordable and more willing to come back. So, and Hicks is he had a lot of splashy plays last year, and yes. It's kind of funny when you talk to him. He's such a kind of this. You feel like you're talking to a banker almost, and but then he gets on the field and he's got a streak to him.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, you bankers out there. That's okay.
No, I don't meet too many bankers that can play like that. Have that kind of aggression on the field, though. He was, he can bring some violence too. So that's good.
That's interesting. I thought about him when I was doing this, and I kind of go with the Asamoah pick. There's more risk in that one because he is young and he is learning and a different style ball player. I guess I did, I loved Hicks last year, and it was because of those splash plays. I guess I didn't see him being, and I didn't look up his stats beforehand if he had the numbers, but he's a good enough tackler, and he tackles enough that you think he's going to have the most. They're going to come to him.
Oh, I mean, I would imagine just by the nature of the position, one of the two would be there. And Asamoah certainly can get to everybody he needs to get to. It's just a matter if there's Asamoah is a smaller guy. And so is Kendricks. I mean, Kendricks is a small linebacker as well.
Speed.
So if you have people in front of him, like when Kendricks had people in front of him, it was Kendrick can get to a lot more, and I think Asamoah's got the speed. He can play side to side. He can cover. Going to make a lot of tackles covering guys. So yeah, I would think it would be one of those two guys, or and as the season if the defense gets, the worse the defense gets, the more possibility you have of like Harrison Smith being your leading tackler and stuff like that.
Yeah, we don't want that.
They're tackling a guy 10 yards downfield all the time, so you don't want that.
It'll be fun to watch. Hicks has probably also got to do some tutelage with Asamoah and really bring him onto the position. So that'll be fun to watch that development there. How about your sack leader? Who are you going with there? Might not even be on the roster yet, Mark. Edge rusher Trey Flowers. Come on.
Yeah. I'm gonna really go out on a limb. Well, maybe it is a little bit of a limb. I think Danielle Hunter. I don't see how they can get this close to the season without any other move, to protect themselves against not having Danielle. I have a feeling they're gonna make Danielle happy. I don't know if it's happy long term or if it's happy just for this year, like they did last year. Mm-hmm. But I think Danielle Hunter, I can see it as clear as day being announced like on day one at camp or whatever. Danielle Hunter has been extended or taken care of in some way or shape or form. and he goes on and he flourishes more so in this defense than he did last year.
I had the same guy, same reason. I think they're going to get it done with him, and yeah, it's a good point. I don't know if they're going to make him long term happy, but they got to do something to keep him here. And at this point, you wouldn't want to cut him loose unless it went so bad. And they got it. They got room for him. Make some give the guy his due and bring Hunter in. These next two, and maybe you can even handle them both at the same time. I got most passes defended and most interceptions. Who do you got for those two?
Wow.
I know, because we just talked about that cornerback room. We don't even know. It could be a revolving door with all those injuries. Who's
I would say interceptions. I'll go with Murphy. I have a feeling I'm totally throwing it at the wall here, but just their hope for him is to be their number one corner. I think he plays in the nickel, plays the slot. Maybe he gets his hands on some more passes and stuff like that. So I don't see a 10 interception guy or even a 6 interception guy. But I'll go with him. I'll go with Murphy, and then the pass is tipped, I guess.
Defended, yeah.
Might be the same guy, but just to shake it up, Evans. I'll say Evans.
Okay. I took Murphy for passes defended just because he is, like you said, going to be their number one corner guy, and he's probably savvier than some of these rookies guys coming back from injury. And for me, it's going to be most interceptions. It's going to be Harry the Hitman, Harrison Smith.
Well, yeah, I think that would be a good one. I probably should switch to him, but I'll keep it. I'll keep it interesting. I'll go with Murphy.
Yeah, I just think that in this new offense, he's going to flourish again. He's stuck around for a reason, and maybe he's going to be able to do a number of different things that makes him in spots where it's going to be there. So I'm hoping that's who I'll go with. But
well, I hope so, because the other guy, and I'm not going to share anything Harrison Smith said or anything, but I think everybody kind of knows that Harrison was kind of wondering why he wasn't used. He had a pretty good track record of things he could do, and we didn't see it last year.
Right.
And we didn't see the attempt to have him do that, which was just, to me, it was kind of inexcusable.
God, I'm just geeked to watch how this new defense works. I mean, after watching the shell defense last year and being frustrated so many times last year, I just to see what the scheme is. I don't know that much about it, but I know it's going to be different. I know it's going to be exciting. There's going to be some crazy things happening out there. I think it'll really be fun to watch this defense. Hopefully they're capable enough to learn it and do it.
And I think if there's reason for excitement if Danielle Hunter's on the field. If Danielle Hunter's not on the field, then I don't. A defensive coordinator can only do so much. If he doesn't have the pass rush, he's kind of limited, in what he can do. So
that's all right. We are done for this time, and so thanks for coming in this week. And folks, we appreciate you being here each week for Vikings territory breakdown. We lost Mark, but anyway, thanks Mark, thanks Mike for producing behind the scenes, and thanks y'all for tuning in. Until next week when we'll do it again. Thanks Joe, and Skol.